Voltaire said in 1729, paper money eventually returns to its intrinsic value. What say you, Tom?
Well, it's true. I don't know what the numbers are, but I think it's like something on the order of 590 currencies over the last 3,000 years have all done the same thing. They all
Wow.
go to their original value, which is zero, because people eventually lose confidence in it, and currency is such an easy thing to manipulate that it's very hard for people to get establish real true values for things with currency unless you're a professional money manager that knows how to mark things to market and do all that fancy calculation stuff. And most of us have just never been given those tools. And so our perception of how currency affects our life over time and how it ends up in this constant drive down to zero is a stair step of thousands of events. I'm sure we could talk about for hours, that ends in this conclusion of a currency failure, because it's just a form of accounting, and the accounting math gets so skewed that nobody knows where we're at, and it just kind of blows up in our face in a big mess, which we're kind of on the doorstep of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Yeah.
it'll be 591 this time. We're going to be
Yeah.
591. That'll be our new number, 591. But
So if that all returns to its intrinsic value, which is zero, where's our value then? Where do we find our value?
well, the problem with value with currency is measuring it over time. Now we can get into all the details about that, but it's an issue of measuring over time. Currency is a great tool in the moment. I mean, it's the lubrication that keeps our economy running. So those that poo-poo it and call it trash is cash, or cash is trash, and all that stuff, I understand the sentiment, and there's a certain amount of truth in that, and it's a good watchword to keep your community poised against holding dollars over time, because like this is something professional money managers know. I mean, you heard Greg Foss in that video say, sorry folks, your house hasn't gone up in 30 years. I mean, there's smarter people than me that say the same thing, and he said it's just the unit of account that measures it is distorting your perception basically of what is really there. It's a numerical gain, not a real gain. A real gain in your house would be you'd gain square footage, or the house's internal workings would be improved somehow, not just that it's worth more dollars. That's
Yeah.
that's a distorted reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then who actually gives us that new estimate of our homes, right? Where does that come from?
Well, see, the thing is,
Based on what?
it's like others have said, it's programmed to debase, meaning to become less valuable. Dollars are like little bubbles. They blow up and they look bigger, but there's still the same amount of like liquid in the bubble. It just expands, right? And so nobody's really responsible for it. It's a feature of currency and the way it operates. Yes, there are those that are doing things that exacerbate that and push that envelope faster, but it seems to be a feature of currency and something to do with counting, the way we count over time. In the moment, you get currency, like I've always said, you get your paycheck on Friday, it'll buy whatever dollars are, $500 or whatever your dollars you get will buy pretty much par value in dollars of goods going forward for the short term.
Yeah.
But if you try to use that logic to save over time, you don't come out the other end with the same amount of value. Numerically, you'll end up with more numbers, but you can't buy as much stuff with the dollars later on. And that is programmed in. That part is almost like there's nobody at fault for. It's just a feature of the system.
Yeah. So how would gold and silver fit into that?
Well, you could store value in just about anything. Okay, you could buy cedar rails. You could buy rolls of fencing, old cars, honey. But the problem with some of these things is they don't have the longevity. They don't stand up over really, really long periods of time. Certain things spoil, other things are cyclical in nature in the economy and don't hold value the same way. Gold and silver, the reason we eventually settled on that is it was a trial and error of various different modalities of trying to store value in a representative model. And gold and silver, for a number of reasons, held up well in the actual experiment, because these are things that it seems to me that we have to practice to figure out whether the utility works or not. And I mean, we've tried not sticks, and that worked fairly well for a while for accounting and ledgers. And we've been in and out of using gold and silver as money over time, and back and forth with paper ledgers and notes and cuneiform tablets. We've tried so many different ways to represent value so that we could keep track in our economy. And they all seem to be fraught with various problems. Gold and silver have some unique qualities that have held them in good stead, particularly their ability to hold up over time. I mean, there's been silver recovered and gold recovered from Spanish galleons at the bottom of the ocean that's been there for 1,000 years, and you clean it up and melt it down, it's the same as the day you found it.
Yes.
So that is a unique quality that can store that value for long periods of time for generational wealth. And that's one of the reasons it survived as one of our modalities of record keeping.
And it's
So
not just shells that anyone can grab off the sea, the beach. You know,
Yeah, you're
this has
referring
be
to
dug
that
up
story.
to get that gold out of the ground. There's a lot.
Yeah,
Labor.
there's a lot of labor involved in it, and that's an important feature too. That's the subject people debate a lot, but I don't think there's any debate about it. If people put work and labor into something, the end product and the end result of that shouldn't be inflationary. All right. And we could go into a lot of the reasons why on that, but that's another hour conversation. So we'll stay away from that. But just suffice it to say, it shouldn't be inflationary. I mean, there's guys like Michael Saylor, you know, who's a Bitcoin advocate, poo-poos gold a bit because he says it's inflationary because we keep discovering more. But I think he misses the point that the discovery and the work that goes into it is what we're actually after. It's what legitimizes the representative value of the metal in itself. Is the labor. That's my thesis anyway. I guess maybe somebody could prove me wrong, but I haven't seen it yet. So gold, you know, it's not going away anytime soon as a store of value. Let's put it that way. Those who disagree, well, good luck. It's here to stay for at least the meantime.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And I mean, it really started to go down a bad road when it started getting manipulated with fractional reserving, right?
Yeah, I just watched a video last night, and it was all word titles out of China, and it was about the industrial sector, and they were talking about the problems that are occurring in the industrial sector. There are shortages there and looming. Their production is going down, their sourcing is difficult, and they're seeing an eventuality down the road where there's going to be a break in the market, and they're complaining about the messing around with the futures market in the West, you know, because they don't do that over there. They have a real demand. They have a real business model where they need product. We need bars of silver to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so they're not, their motives are very different than the West, which seems to be this paper game of just making paper gains in the silver market and the gold market, whereas they have a real commodity that they have to deal with, and they're frustrated that we are controlling the price in the West, and they're subject to the downhill bad news from that. So it's becoming an issue. It is becoming a real issue that's brewing, which is positive for price, because this is the thing they're complaining about. They're basically saying we need, you know, 4-letter word, $100 triple-digit silver price to get the market where it needs to be. So that demand, it's not going to go away. Silver goes into every electronics product and 60,000 industrial uses. So
you've been talking about this for a few years, that China's going to start demanding the price to go up. They're just going to need it.
Yeah, like we like to play with numbers in the West because we don't build as much stuff. So we're playing a different game over here. Okay, so how do we play in this economy? Well, we play the numbers game, the markets, right? We live in a services-based economy, so they're more substantive. They're manufacturing real things, so their whole mindset is different. It's their reasoning for what they need and what they do is different. People over here, the majority of the trading in silver, they don't care about the silver whatsoever. It's just a futures trade. It's just a numbers game to them, and that's what the push pull between the West and the East that's so different. But it's the West that has the actual machinery of the counting machinery, the accounting
Yeah.
machinery.
Mhm.
And so the guy with the numbers wins. He controls the market, which it shouldn't be that way. It should be the physical market should control what happens.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what they're complaining about. So, and there's no central authority like the LBMA for silver or anything like that that you can turn to and say, hey, we need some people to come up with a solution for this. So individual players in the manufacturing scene are now, crying, hey, this is going to
I
get
know.
bad. This is going to get bad.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
who's going to hear them?
Well, you did.
Yeah, I heard them, but there's only so much one person can do. But I
Well,
can.
this is good news for silver,
It
This is
is,
good
in a
news for
sense, it is
silver,
good
and
news
it's
for
so
price.
cheap right now. It's just so cheap right now. You look at Bitcoin, it's like how much now?
I
Compared to a
mean,
coin of silver.
yeah.
My gosh.
I mean, we in the investment community for silver, we can whine and complain and cry about the price all day long. I mean, I don't complain about it, and I don't think anybody should. As long as the price is still low, buy more. That's my mentality. Just keep buying. I mean, if you believe in something, that you enough to put money into it, put currency into it, then you should consistently believe in it until something changes. And nothing's changed in the silver and gold market. It's still price suppressed. It's still undervalued. And I just consider it a long-term waiting game. And I think people should. Because these things that like this China issue with the manufacturing, that's a real thing that's not going to go away. And eventually that real demand will outstrip the paper demand and the paper game. It has to. It's just inevitable. People need the end result more than they need a few paper gains in the market. So that demand will push the gaming of the system aside, in my opinion. It's just a matter of when. There's going to be an inflection point where it's and that paper game will probably still go on, but I think quietly there's going to be a change that won't be noticed at first. And I think it's already happening. That was a clue for me that I've been waiting, for a couple, 3 years to see evidence of this coming. So it's there.
Yeah.
And I have you as a witness because I don't write any of this stuff down. So she's my only witness. I called it. Not that that's important. I think the solution is more important than who gets credit for calling the market, right? It's we need a higher silver price. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
And I mean need, not just a fleeting need. Like I need to make more money or more gains. The industry needs it.
Yeah.
To be sound, to be able to supply. There's going to be shortages, straight up, inevitable.
Well, they're not even bringing up the amount from the ground, are they right now that we need?
Well, no, the incentive isn't there. There's a base price. One analyst I heard talk about it. He said it really well, and he said, this is a product where the price floor, is literally up against the actual base cost, which is your spot price. So there's almost nowhere to go. Like it is literally pushing right underneath it constantly. So people are like in this talk, they were talking about this company produces like 160,000 ounces a day of industrial silver. And at the end of their year last year, they lost 4%. They're not making money. They're doing it at a loss. The investors in these corporations are probably holding on because they've got a lot of money involved in it, and they want to see. They know that there's something has to change, so they're holding out and they're allowing these corporations to lose money every year because they're waiting for the inevitability of it to turn around, obviously, right? And this is pretty sad that they can't make a profit moving that much product. They're just running at a loss. So private investors are propping this industry up in China, obviously to some degree. That's not a good sign, and it can't stay that way. Has to break.
Yeah, to shut a mine down and start it up again, it's insane the amount of money that would cost, the labor, everything. Yep. So this is why they're running on a loss right now, hoping for the change, eh?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Because, to mothball a mine, mining is expensive. It's big machines, it's expensive talent. Everything's big and expensive in mining. So, you mothball a production line and everything seizes up, all the rollers seize, you got to replace parts, and sometimes entirely replace equipment because it's just more effort and more time and more work to rehabilitate the equipment than to put in new. So sometimes they're better to operate at a loss for 2 or 3 years, hoping the market will turn a corner, than to actually mothball it and go into zero production. So, and the need is there. So people are crying, send us products, send us products. So you're seeing a lot of these I'm willing to bet if you got into it, a lot of these places are operating at a loss. So that can't stay that way. The world needs silver, whether you realize it or not. You take for granted where the functions it provides, and there's no substitute. So this has to eventually change. The eventually is the problem. When?
Yeah.
So we just keep buying, right?
Yeah.
If you believe in something, then you should keep buying.
And then I guess we're going to see pressure from China for production, and we're going to even see pressure from the mines eventually to say, look, we can't keep going like this.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a convergence, I think, of pressure for this silver to have to.
Yeah, and it's coming from multiple different angles, because there's no real, according to these folks in the industrial, there's no real central authority that has some sort of power to go and talk to and say, hey, can you go on our behalf and do something? Talk to governments, talk to industry. There's no lobby group. There's nobody out there. Not that I want to see one, but I think I would rather see this organically fix itself through supply and demand dynamics, which is, there's a possibility of that right now, because there's no central authority regulating and telling everybody what to do and where to go, right? So it opens up the doors for possibility, at least for all of us that are investors in the industry. Just, these are positive reasons for you folks that are returning to listen, to keep your chin up and don't despair over a few price movements and things like that. It's very easy to get emotional about it, and there's just no point in it. A few dollars move in silver is not even on the radar. I mean, silver increased 25x in the bull run in 70s. So I'm not saying it's going to do that this time in its big run, but it's going to do something. It has to. I put has to in quotations for a reason. Has to. Maybe quotations aren't right. I shouldn't do that. That's sort of one of those, has to is a vague thing, but in quotations, but maybe you should slam my fist down. Has to. It's more appropriate. You laugh. It's my frustration under control. Slam my fist down. Because it's frustrating to watch something like this. It's an untenable situation that has to change eventually. So we sit and we wait as people that are investors in the industry. So wait with us, folks. Don't give up on it.